Hi there, I am Dr. Vicky Wana and I'm a chartered counselling psychologist working in private practice based here in the UK. Thank you so much for stopping by to my YouTube channel. I have been toying with the idea of putting together a channel for a while, and it just so happened that the timing was right, and I have now been practicing. Well, I began my training 10 years ago, my doctorate training, to become a psychologist, and I've actually been qualified now as a psychologist for 7 years, and it just felt really fitting, like a real cyclical full moment for me, thinking, gosh, I started this journey 10 years ago. But anyway, I have, just come to a point where I realised that, gosh, I've been doing this for a little bit. Not, I'm not like a veteran, but I've been doing it for a while now. And I thought this would be, what a good opportunity to share with you 10 things that I have learned throughout my practice as a psychologist over the last 10 years, and just really share them with you because who knows, I thought you might be interested. And with this channel, I just really wanted to create a little pocket of the internet, a little slither of a community over here who can really just be authentic, vulnerable and courageous and kind of living your own truth. And so I'm just going to be sharing with you some lessons that I've learned along the way, some things that I've picked up in practice, some valuable lessons that I've learned from my clients, because believe you me, the learning goes both ways. And yeah, I just thought I'd share them with you, and let's see how this channel evolves as we go on. I'm praying that I'm going to be consistent, hold me to it. And I just really want to, I love community, I love connection, I love a sense of belonging, and if I can encourage some people to connect with like-minded individuals, and just to realise that we are not that different. There are a lot of things, there are more things that unite us than separate us as a human species. So yeah, that's me, that is why I'm here. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me. Let's get to it. So, a little about me. So as I said, I'm a chartered counselling psychologist and I'm working here in the UK. A lot of my clients are based in the UK, but I do see some around the world. And yeah, I've been doing this for a minute now and I really, really enjoy it. I have always known that I've wanted to be a psychologist. Well, when I say always, when I did my GCSEs and I chose psychology, I remember thinking, yeah, this is it. I didn't have a name or words to describe exactly what I wanted to do, but I just knew that I wanted to help people. I wanted to listen and support them. And I studied psychology and I was like, oh, this is it. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I've not really looked back. So since the age of, how old was that, 15? I've kind of been on this psychology pathway and I've not looked back. And I think that for me, I've just always been passionate about really helping people to own their voice, to own their truth, to accept themselves and then to like themselves, and also to foster really good relational skills, because that is one thing that we are not taught in school, which we should be. We should be taught how to have relationships, because it is not easy. It is not easy to learn how to relate well with ourselves and also with other people. So those are the things that I'm really passionate about, and I'm so privileged to be able to do a job that I really love. Lesson number 1, unless we take an active position or active stance to address our past, it more than likely will be controlling our present. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that there are so many unconscious processes that we hold at any given time, and it can be really hard to be self-aware without knowing where you've come from and without knowing what has influenced you and how you've gotten to where you are today. When people come to therapy, a lot of people, when we do the inevitable assessment and I'm asking them about their childhood, so many people say, yeah, I just had a really normal childhood, a happy childhood. My parents are still together. People throw that out there a lot. It was just, just happy, normal childhood. as if you can't have a normal childhood but still be impacted by life and the environments and the relationships that surrounded you at that time. And I think it's so important for us to be open, to be curious about maybe the roles that we took on in our family, the atmosphere in the family. You know, what are some of the beliefs that we have held about ourselves that has been shaped by our early childhood experiences, and how is that impacting me now? How is that influencing the way that I interact with other people, the way I move through the world now? So I think that to be self-aware means that you have to be curious and you have to be open to looking back, exploring, doing a little bit of digging, not necessarily to unearth trauma or to unearth like something really horrible, but just to be aware, this is where I'm coming from, this is what has influenced me today, and this is how it's impacting me. What do I want to do about it? Do I want to accept myself as I am right now? Are there some things I want to tweak? Are there some things I want to adapt, modify, improve, celebrate even? So I think it's really important for us to, in order to feel that freedom to move through the world with ease and to be who we think we are, sometimes it requires us looking back. Lesson number 2, we learn about ourselves through the eyes of another. So as babies born into this world who are so dependent on their caregiver to survive, basically, to get their needs met, we're constantly soaking up information, or babies are constantly soaking up information around their environment, and they learn about themselves through the gaze of another person, a gaze of a mother, father, aunt, whoever is their primary caregiver, looking at them in the eye and seeing what they see. Stick with me. I know that may sound a little bit weird and a little bit woo-woo. Well, I don't know how it sounds, but we learn so much about our emotions, our identity, our self-worth through the gaze and through the attentiveness and through the eyes of another person. And I find that a lot of people that have come into therapy or who struggle with knowing their self-worth, maybe, or even understanding their emotions, they may have picked up the belief, the lesson that they weren't good enough, that they were not important enough, that they brought sorrow, all because of the way someone has looked at them and reflected back what they have seen. Does that make sense? So I think therapy can be really important, again, to see yourself from another person's perspective, namely your therapist. Someone who's objective, but someone who also has your best interests at heart, who can reflect to you the care, the compassion, the acceptance, the nurturing that maybe you haven't experienced before. And when you can see that reflected back, you start to believe it. You start to believe, actually, yeah, maybe I do matter, maybe I do belong, maybe I am of worth, maybe I do have something to offer this world, maybe I am good enough. So community relationships are so important, they're so integral, because we can learn about ourselves through the eyes of another, or the mirror of another person. Lesson number 3, boundaries are so important. I talk about this a lot. Boundaries are so important, and boundaries have become a hot topic in society today, which is fantastic that we are owning and realizing that we need boundaries in our lives. However, the manner in which you communicate your boundaries is so important, because it's important that you learn to say no, you learn to hold your sense of self-respect and self-worth, you learn to communicate how you want to be treated, and you learn to communicate your needs in a way that actually doesn't shock the other person or doesn't fling the other person the other way, but actually is also respectful of the other person. So I like to use this analogy of like a gate, boundaries being a gate. We let people in, we let people out. It's a barrier, but we don't want to be like an electric fence that when people come too close to our boundary, which is what people do because boundaries are there. Maybe you can say for some reason boundaries are there sometimes so people can test it and know how far to go to it before they can bounce back. But you want people to come into contact with your boundary and still leave feeling respected, not shamed, and like they're willing to continue this interaction. They're willing to continue this friendship. There's a level of respect there. There's a level of mutual respect there that just means that the relationship can thrive, basically. To be honest, who really enjoys being scolded, told off, shamed, ghosted when they've done something that has maybe annoyed, disappointed another person? Who wants that? If we all did that, if we all just kind of like shut down, removed ourselves immediately from situations, blacklisted people, shouted at them, where would we be? How many of us would be in harmonious relationships? Relationships are a dance, but there's a lot of going backwards and forwards and figuring out how to move around each other. And in order for there to be some flow, I think it's important that we know how to communicate our boundaries well. Number 4, people pleasing is less about being a nice person and not wanting to offend other people, but more about self-preservation. Because when we dig a little bit deeper, the difficulties that people who are people pleasing, bit of a tongue twister there, the difficulties, if we dig a little bit deeper under the difficulties with saying no and not wanting to hurt other people, it's about emotional and social survival. If I were to disappoint this person, if I were to say no to them, where would that leave me? Would I be rejected? Would I be abandoned? Would I be socially humiliated? Will I be cast out of the community? Would I be cast out of the community? Then what? What does that say about me? If people leave me because I've said no to them, who do I have left? What does that say about me as a person? Am I worthy of love? So when you find people, or if you yourself are struggling to kind of say no, or not even just that really, because it's not just about being a yes person, but if you struggle with owning your choices, owning your decisions, making decisions that are right for you, because of a fear of what other people may do, say, or think, you're not just a nice person. Maybe you are a nice person, but that's just not it. There's a fear there about rejection, social, emotional alienation or rejection. And until we kind of believe, or until we alter the core beliefs that we hold about ourselves, the core belief that I'm unlovable, the core belief that I'm not worthy, that people don't want to be around me, that people always reject me. Until you address those core beliefs, you may still operate in that mode of, I've got to keep love around, I've got to keep acceptance around. And part of that is by dialing down my inner voice, dialing down my own needs, and making sure that I meet the needs of other people to the detriment of my own. Lesson number 5. To know pain is to be alive. That may sound a bit crazy because obviously pain is not nice. Now, I'm not talking about people who may have experienced trauma after trauma, really difficult circumstances. I'm not glorifying pain, emotional pain and trauma and disappointment. I'm not glamorizing that by any means of the imagination. But I found that people who struggle with addictions, who struggle with using substances to numb themselves or to fill a void or to numb themselves from feeling, I think that's it. When you numb yourself from feeling, you don't just avoid feeling the negative emotions, you also avoid coming into contact with the really great emotions and feelings that we associate with love, with connection, with belonging, with joy, with pride, with celebration. And actually, pain, as well as joy, as well as love, is kind of a part of life and lets us know we're alive. We're alive. And when you're alive, you are more able to connect with other people. You're able to really connect with yourself, and experience the highs and the lows that life has to offer. So that's lesson 5 for me. To know pain, although really crappy, but to know pain is to also be alive. Lesson number 6. Change is not always evident unless you are looking for it. Now I'm talking about internal change, but I also want to liken it to physical change and physical appearance. So I don't know about you, but if you've ever joined a program at the gym, I've done far too many for my liking, where you are trying to make some changes, whether you're trying to bulk up, shred, you're trying to change something maybe in the gym, and the PT, the coaches will more than likely say to you, take some progress pics, take some pics before you start, and we're going to take some pics after. Now they do that because more than likely, unless your change is really dramatic and really obvious, you're not going to see it until you do the comparison photo and you see, oh my gosh, yeah, I can really see a difference. But we don't always see it. We don't always see it when we're going through it. So that's why it's important to kind of look back, and therapy can be the same. So I really make a point of emphasizing this when I'm in therapy with clients, and maybe they're being quite down on themselves and they're just thinking, gosh, I thought I was past this, and here I am back again making the same not so wise decisions, or I'm getting back into the same cyclical negative thought patterns. I thought I was past this. I see it as my job to be like, whoa, hold up, I've got receipts. I'm going to flip back from our first assessment. This is what you were showing me. This is what you were saying. This is what you were doing. This is how you were reenacting certain situations. And this is how you've improved in this area. This is how you've improved in that area. This is how you are making progress, slow but steady progress in this area. Change is occurring. And it's so important for us to have people like that around us who can point out our progress, who can celebrate our small victories, the small wins, and say, actually, no, you're not in the same place. A lot is going on. And then that acts as like, I guess that encourages people to keep going. It gives you confidence that, okay, I'm getting somewhere. I can keep going, I can keep running this race because I know I'm getting somewhere. So change is not always evident unless you're looking for it. Lesson number 7, relationships and the act of relating to others is a skill that needs to be learned and developed and constantly improved. I really think they should teach us relationship skills at school, because you're just kind of thrown into the real world out there and expected to know how to get on well with people. And I don't mean necessarily that you need to be able to get on well with people all the time, but you need to be able to, communicate. Communicate well. A lot of issues in couples therapy and just any kind of relational therapy, a lot of issues kind of stem from a lack of communication. Not just a lack of communication, but a lack of knowing how to communicate well, how to actually make a point so the other person can hear it and receive it and want to do something with it. not communication that causes another person to shut down, not communication that causes another person to somehow try and guess what you may be thinking, saying, you know, what's in your mind, or just not communicating at all. Oh, it's a minefield. It's a minefield. Myself included. I'm still learning day by day how I can communicate better, how I can own my stuff, you know, how I can think about how my behavior is actually impacting another person, because I may have something that's going on for me and I may say that that's not my intention to come across in a certain way. Nevertheless, it still has an impact, and we are relational beings. Even if you are the most introverted, isolated person out there, we are still social beings, and we are still in relationship with people, even if those people are not necessarily significant in our lives. We're in relationship with our postman or postwoman. We're in relationship with the cashier at the desk in the store. We're in relationship with our neighbours, our colleagues, our family. And just understanding the minefield that is relationships is really, really important, and this is a skill that constantly needs to be developed. Lesson number 8. The story you tell yourself matters. It really, really does. The more we tell ourselves a particular story, the more we repeat it to ourselves, the more we start to believe it. And that can actually be quite a powerful thing. If you are telling yourselves, and sometimes these are not even, the stories that we tell ourselves are not even so obvious. They're not necessarily in another person's voice, they're in our voice. Well, I guess, obviously, because we're telling it to ourselves. But, you know, if we're telling ourselves that, I only matter if I'm successful in everything that I do. If I fail at anything, that's it. What is the point? Where is my self-worth after that? You know, I only matter to people because they benefit from me, because they get something from me. It matters. The more we hear it, the more we tell ourselves, the more entrenched that belief becomes, until we then start moving in a way that kind of confirms that belief. And I think it's the same thing with telling ourselves a different story or growing in self-confidence. We need to tell ourselves a new narrative and tell it and repeat it to ourselves over and over and over again until we start to believe it. And this kind of links to the previous point that I made about us learning about ourselves and the mind of another, right? And hearing what other people are saying about us. And the more we kind of hear it and hear it and hear it, the more we believe it. So it's really important to think, what story am I telling myself? And is this working for me? And if not, how can I change the narrative? It's really powerful. Lesson number 9. Anger is a really useful emotion to have and to express. It's not a negative emotion. It doesn't feel pleasant, sure, at times. Nevertheless, it is a very important emotion to have. It's just how we express the emotion that really matters. And anger, I guess with all other emotions, is a communicative tool. You know, it communicates to another person, okay, you've done something that has violated me, has crossed a boundary here, that has disrespected me, actually. And it's good that we feel anger, because it means that we have some semblance of self-respect and self-worth and wanting to protect ourselves. But how we do so, and also how often we do so, but that's maybe another story for another day, really matters. And similarly to the boundary issue, you know, how we communicate that we've been disrespected, not heard, boundaries have been crossed, is really, really important, and can actually go some way in strengthening a relationship rather than rupturing a relationship. And there are different types of, you know, anger and how we can express that. You know, there's passive aggressiveness, which is not necessarily you're not really owning your aggression. You're kind of going about it sideways and hoping that the other person will get the hint somehow that you're annoyed with them. Then we have full-on aggression, which is, you know, you physically exerting yourself, which is not okay, because then you're more than likely going to cross someone else's boundary for using aggression, verbal aggression, physical aggression, you know, intimidation. You're more than likely going to cross someone else's boundary, and then, you know, your point kind of loses some validity. And then we have assertiveness, where you are clearly and confidently stating what you don't like, maybe what you'd like to be done differently, and being able to do that in actually a really effective way. Yeah, you can be confidently assertive and say, no, that's not okay, without having to resort to passive aggression, physical aggression, verbal aggression. So it's really important for us to own our anger. Otherwise, yes, we will. What's that communicating to other people? That we don't think that ourselves, our sense of worth is worth being respected, you know. So it's important to own anger. It's just important to express it in an assertive way. Lesson number 10, which is my absolute fave, it's one of my mantras, and that is, you are good enough just the way you are, and you're also getting better day by day. I love this lesson, and I like to repeat it to myself. Oh gosh, I need to repeat it to myself. I love to repeat it to other people, because it's an and as one of my favorite supervisors, managers that I used to work for, who I absolutely adored and still adore right now, that was one of her favorite phrases. It's an and I know some other people say it's an and or both and, but I really love her, the way she used to say it, which is, it's an and it's not an either or. You can be good enough without changing anything about you. You're worthy of being accepted and loved just the way you are, and you're constantly in a state of improving yourself, bettering your relationships with yourself, your self-image, bettering your presence in the world and how you navigate this world and how you relate to other people. Both are true at the same time. It can be hard to get our heads around that, particularly if you are subjective to, or if you're prone to being really self-critical and perfectionistic, if you've had maybe neglect, abuse, trauma in your life. It can be really hard to accept that, but accept it you can, with some TLC and with some hard work. That is the lesson number 10. You are good enough just the way you are, and you're improving day by day. So that wraps up my 10 lessons that I've learned in 10 years of therapy. I hope you have enjoyed that and found that useful. I'd love to know what you think. Please share with people who you think could really benefit from hearing some of these lessons. What are some of the lessons you're kind of exploring? I just want to hear it all. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, take care.